Um, okay, we're recording right now. If you want to get started.
Oh, we are. Okay.
Oh yeah, hi.
So I'm really excited to be speaking with my friend and partner and colleague, Justin Paperny. Obviously, all of you know him because if you're on this section, you're a member of our program. I just wanted to ask Justin a few things that differentiate a white collar offender from perhaps some of the other people that may go into prison from a more criminogenic background. That's a big word for people who went to USC, but basically it
It's
means
just,
it
I
means
mean,
people who have a criminal background. I know what many white collar offenders don't really come from
I
a criminal background; they just fall into the place.
I've
And
asked you I've asked you not to use words in our videos that I don't know what they mean. So let's start there. First off, before we get in, it looks like you have a wonderful tan while most of America was freezing. Can you tell us a little bit about Belize over the last week?
not only while most of America was freezing, but while the stock market was tanking, I was doing what I learned to do in prison, which is look for opportunities where others don't see them. And I flew down to Belize on a kind of a reconnaissance mission, Justin. In fact, I'm glad you asked that because I'm going
Yeah.
to be asking you to join me in this new venture that I'm creating called Prison to Paradise. So yeah, I traveled down to Belize, explored the extraordinary development known as the Reserve. I purchased a piece of property there. I'm going to be developing that property there. I definitely want you to be a partner in it with me,
Can
Justin.
I put up some photos? I'm gonna put up some photos of your trip.
Oh yeah, I've got extraordinary
All right.
photos that you can definitely weave into the videos. I'm gonna, in fact, I'm gonna be publishing a little simple video, probably by tomorrow, that describes what I'm trying to do, why I want you and Sean to be a partner in it, but also why some of your listeners should be thinking about this. You know, I know you're spinning out of control when you're going into this, but look at me. I mean, I was in jail for 26 years. I've been out for less than 5 years. I'm crushing it. That's what I want you to do. Now you
Well,
can if you stick with Justin's program.
I agree. Part of the reason I wanted to talk about this, I was at USC last week talking to all these business classes and students, and some of the students were fascinated. I asked them, "What do you think is the greatest consequence of a white collar conviction or going to prison?" And all of them just focus on prison, prison, prison. And before I went to prison, all I was obsessed with, my God, I may go to prison. What can I do to get my ass out of prison? And in
Well,
retrospect,
one thing you
yeah,
should have thought about when you were thinking about that, Justin, is not try to come out looking like you were in prison with all that facial hair that you've got going on. What are you
thank you.
trying
That,
to avoid?
to, yeah, it's Valentine's Day today, and my wife is a fan of facial hair. So as itchy and uncomfortable as it is for her, um, I'm growing it for just through today. So yes, I look a little like a hoodlum. I'm sorry, but it'll be gone here soon enough. So thank you for commenting. I did shave actually every day in prison, just not today. Please, thank you. Where were we? Oh yes, I know where we were.
Yeah.
Prison. The greatest consequence of it. I assumed it was prison, and all these students presumed it would be prison. And one student's like, isn't it maybe even worth it to try to steal a few $1,000,000 if you're only going to serve like 6 months in one of those, country club camps? I mean, is the risk worth the reward? And I began to express, the greatest consequence wasn't necessarily time in a minimum security camp, but it's all of these consequences that follow it. And I thought we'd touch on that a little bit and perhaps help some white collar defendants or any potential defendant watching understand it's not just prison to get through, it's creating strategies that 5, 10, 20, like you just said, 5 years post your release from prison, you own homes and you're buying properties. Well, it didn't happen by accident. So I don't know, just have a general conversation about
Yeah, why
that.
don't you tell us a little bit about some of those consequences that many of the people you encountered face?
Well, I think I remember in my case as a white collar defendant, there's a series of almost like lower lows where you don't think it's going to. I remember getting fired from UBS and getting walked down to my car from two big guys that the day I got fired. And you just kind of tell yourself, well, it can't get worse than this. I got fired, big deal. Then the FBI shows up. You're like, okay, it probably can't get worse than this. And then you get through it. And then um, the indictment, or you see your name online, and hiring lawyers and the civil and all the lawsuits and all the expenses that come along with it.
Tell us a little bit about those expenses.
Well, in my case, because I was in denial and so naive, I didn't fully understand how to vet or hire criminal defense attorneys. So I tend to believe whatever they told me or whatever the buzzwords that sounded good at the time that I thought could get my ass out of this. So if they said something like just that I wanted to hear, I pulled out. Thankfully, despite losing all my most of my money going to prison, Michael, I'll tell you one thing that remained: my city card with a lot of credit on it, despite the 24% interest. Okay, so anytime a lawyer or someone said something that could help me, I just pulled it out and paid. So 50 became 100, became 200, became 250, and at the end of the day, I had good lawyers, I suppose, but I was lazy and I didn't work and I just didn't
So I
advocate.
thought you bought a phenomenal course about how to beat a lie detector test. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was actually bought on this city card. So I was in such denial while fighting my case, and I was convinced that I had done absolutely nothing wrong, that I told my lawyers that I'd be willing that I'd be willing to take a lie detector test, and of course they said to me, "You can take the test. It's going to cost like 5 or 7 grand, and at that point you're spending so much money. It's like who cares about 7 grand? If
You said something there that's
yeah,
really relevant for any of your listeners. You
yeah.
said, I was so convinced that I didn't do anything wrong. And I truthfully find that very hard to believe.
Thank you.
I do. I want you to tell me or assess whether it was I felt I didn't do anything wrong, or I felt that I could figure out and manipulate a way so that others would not think I did something wrong, but I knew what I did.
Right. So let's talk about that. So now I'm now 43, of course, 10 or 11 years into this space, and a lot of work behind me. And to tell this story effectively, while even a little embarrassing, I have to take you back to my culture and time, what I was thinking as a 29 and 30-year-old. So we're talking 13 years ago. So it's a little embarrassing, but if I'm going to be authentic, I'm going to talk about my mindset 13 years ago. So yes, going back 13 years ago, or even 14 years ago, I convinced myself that because I had some success in the past, perhaps of manipulating and advancing my interest and getting ahead as a stockbroker really quickly, I told myself that I could manipulate my way out of this. So yes, I knew that it was wrong that I was doing. Didn't think criminal. I didn't think I could ever go to jail for it. I thought civilly I should be sanctioned, probably should have lost my job. But where I was raised, I never thought about going to prison. But I did figure that with the right lawyers, scratching the right checks, knowing the right people, influencing people, I suppose, with money and some of my BS, so to speak, that I can manipulate my way to a productive outcome. And that's why I spent 7 grand on a lie detector test, or 5 grand.
Yeah, but you're bringing up a good point, because when you first said I was absolutely convinced that I didn't do anything wrong, I think a lot of the viewers that are watching this have have a different mindset.
Yep.
In their heart of hearts, in their mind, they know what they did. People, I mean, I don't want to say they know what
Yep.
they did. People who broke the law know that they broke the law, but we're so used to facing challenges and overcoming obstacles and advancing our life that we sometimes make these decisions without, and that's why your story is so important, is to recognize and say, you know what, I knew I did something wrong, but I had confidence in myself and my ability to maneuver or manipulate events, that I was going to do anything and everything to advance that agenda. I went all in, including spending 7 grand on a lie detector test, including spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on an attorney. Whereas if I would have listened to Justin Paperny's story, I may have recalibrated at a moment and said, wait a minute, is there a better way? And when you begin asking those kinds of questions, those better questions, maybe people can...
Well, here's something that's so important about a better way. In retrospect, I realized there's this difference between wanting and needing. Like I needed to better prepare and take action, but I didn't really want to. I really wanted to live in denial and eat poorly and not exercise and shun my family. And many of my friends ostracized me, but it was my fault. And part of the reason why, Michael, is I didn't really want to work. I was that guy that like talked about it but didn't follow through. I said all of the right things to my family. I'm going to make amends. I'm going to work hard. I'm sorry. But if you were to look at my day-to-day actions, I didn't know how to hold a lawyer accountable. I just deferred to them because it's a former U.S. attorney who's smart. And I get that call with defendants all the time from a defendant that was, I have a former U.S. attorney. He's great. He's going to write the greatest sentencing memorandum in the world. I have a lawyer from a letter from a former congressman. And then I point him to a video that you did, I think, with Judge Bennett, where I'm like, they don't care if it's from a congressman. It can be from a plumber or gardener. Does it speak to your character? Does it speak to your integrity? I didn't do those things. I just outsourced it all. And part of that is I didn't really want to work. It wasn't a money thing. I had the money. I had a credit card. I could have gotten it. I was just lazy. I didn't want to work, and I tried to buy an outcome.
Well, I think that's a good start to this episode. Why don't we cut this off right here? And
Okay.
Start another one, so because people may not want to watch for 30 minutes, so we're going to do this as a series of 10
Okay.
minutes, 7 to 10 minute interviews. And what I want to leave we with is a takeaway. Okay, if you are watching this program and you are contemplating, how am I going to maneuver my way through this very tragic event, understand that you have come, as Scott Peck said, the road less traveled. You've come to a Y in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose, if you would like, to deploy resources, to continue perpetuating the myth, to continue to try and manipulate and maneuver events and deny and live in denial, but understand that there are opportunity costs that come with that. Opportunity costs to perhaps express remorse, accept responsibility, begin showing that you recognize your wrongs.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that every step that you take down this road could potentially lead you to a more aggravated sentence. Every step you take along this road could begin toward healing, reconciling, moving forward. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you are able to begin restoring confidence, building life, getting back on the path, and moving towards the success that you're destined to become.
Well,
We're
and
going to follow up with this in the next video.
yeah, well, last thing, just to close on that, why it's so important. So there's this. It's very easy initially to get energetic and excited and create this, say, I'm going to do it, and then the reality sets in that you actually have to change some habits and behaviors, and not just say you're going to hold yourself and others accountable, but do it. So I've been asked, I try to consult to a degree. If I had a consultant, how I would have wanted.
Stop. I would like
Okay.
you to do that on the next video.
Okay.
Talk to us about your consulting
Got it.
process.
Got it.
Because otherwise, we're going to be going for 50 minutes here. We can do this for 10 days. We're going to
Got
provide you with a series of videos, very on point. This one was about living with responsibility, taking action, moving forward. Now we're going to hear about how it will be if you work with somebody who's gone down that path. So let's just stand by for the next video. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.